Okay, hi everybody. So the project that we've been working on for the past term is called bARk, which is a virtual pet AR application. To introduce ourselves, I'm Devin. I'm the project manager and lead AR developer, and I'm also secondary UX.
Hi, I'm Leanne. I'm the lead UX, but I'm also secondary UI and development.
I'm Lily. I'm lead UI and secondary development.
Mel, your mic isn't working. But I'm Brittany. I'm a content lead and secondary UI.
And I'm Chelsea. I'm an AR lead, secondary UX and content.
Okay, so moving a bit more into what bARk is, we are an augmented reality app that aims to provide a virtual animal companion to our users, offering them entertainment and emotional support. We want to give our users the opportunity to continue creating memories with their pet wherever they may be through their extended bARk life.
Now here comes the problem. There are many people, such as myself, who are allergic to most things, but especially dogs. I even need to keep my distance from hypoallergenic dogs, so there's just no chance of me ever owning one. Despite everything, I still love dogs, would theoretically love to own one, and many other people who are allergic feel the same way. With this application, this dream can become the closest thing to reality. Through augmented reality, I could interact with the pet anywhere I go without having to deal with allergies. This application isn't just specific to this problem, though. It addresses many others, such as dog owners who are frequently away from their pet and need something to fill that loneliness. People who are thinking about owning a pet and want to experiment first rather than just dive right into it, and people who are seeking entertainment in the form of a pet companion but want more than just a 2D experience like a Tamagotchi and don't want to deal with real pets. This application is for everyone.
bARk uses AR technology to place a pet over the user's surroundings, bringing a virtual pet to the real world. A target user group for this application are those who enjoy company of pets of all ages. The main industry is technology and mobile applications, and as you can see, our competition we identified based off of this is Dog Simulator, Doggy Got You Go, Dex Your AR Companion, Planet AR, Virtual Pet, Snapchat Filters, Nintendogs, and Tamagotchi.
So, AR was a brand new technology that none of us really understood or experienced designing for. So we conducted a lot of research. We conducted research on how UI is different when working with AR and how UX differs for AR and how we can design to create the best possible experience for this new technology. We researched on different AR tools in order to develop our AR platform, such as Spark and Snapchat lenses, anything like that. And we also spoke with different alumni and people experienced within the field to better understand how to test for AR when we got to that point. We not only did research for AR, but we also did research on how people interacted with dogs in general, people's favorite species, their favorite interactions our users would love to see to interact with their own pocket companion. We also did our own research for our users, which was conducting research on our prototype using usability tests, card sorts, and surveys.
You can hear me, right? Just want to make sure. Okay. Let me take that as yes. So this team created a persona based on the preliminary research. This persona is an example of a target user, a pet lover who uses modern technology. Sarah works a consultant job in Philadelphia. She travels a lot for work and would love to have a companion to come home to, but doesn't have the time. She misses her family dog Elvis and finds joy in his extended visits with her. Sarah enjoys her time with her dog and prioritizes his happiness. She does not like time apart from Elvis and gets lonely easily, but does not have the ability to get her own pet since she travels so often for work. Though Sarah is in the millennial age range, we are not only targeting this age group. bARk can be used by any age group that understands how to use a mobile application. This is the alpha pet creation flow. First, the users ask for their name. Then they select the pet breed, then size, then color. In the color section, they pick a fur pattern. Then they can adjust the colors with a slider. If they don't see any furs they like, there's a camera button to upload a photo of their existing pet. Next, they can adjust pet behavior with a few different slider options. Lastly, they name their pet. As you can see, decisions had not yet been made on the final content such as breeds, fur patterns, and behaviors. The purpose of this prototype and user test was twofold. We wanted to see if this creation process was intuitive to a user and felt quick and clean. We also got the chance to ask users what breeds, fur patterns, and behaviors they would be interested in seeing.
For our first user test, we wanted to understand if our first iteration of wireframes was intuitive for our users. We focused a little less on the layout, but more on what we wanted the content for our users to see, or how it was being shown in our layout. We wanted to understand how much content and what types of content our users would have liked to see implemented within the customization process of their AR dog. And in addition to content, we also tested some UI that we created to see if it was intuitive enough for our users. One of our takeaways dealt with the navigation bar. So for our navigation bar, we found that it was confusing to the user on how to get from one page to another, which in a later iteration of our UI, we address. What we wanted for the navigation bar was for it to also act as a progress bar, but also a place for people to navigate throughout the process. However, we found out that that just wasn't intuitive enough for our users. Second takeaway dealt with our content. We recognized that we needed to develop more content and a specific amount of content that our users sought to customize. We questioned how many options would be good for us to present in order for our users to customize their pet. One question that we asked was what types of dogs are the most popular amongst not only our users, but just a general population within the US itself. And in order to develop customization for our users, we had to research on what aspects of a dog can be customized and vary amongst so many different species. In the end, we realized through our user test that we needed to undergo an entire change with our UI. Our designs were just not intuitive enough for our users. I felt like there were several pages that our users had to go through, even though the process was a fine amount. Later, we constructed it to feel like one entire flow versus having 7 different pages of customization.
Before we started developing, as Leanne mentioned before, we researched and tried different softwares that could potentially work, and we decided to continue with bARk AR. So bARk AR is Instagram and Facebook's AR software, which allows us to upload these filters directly to these apps. We wanted to get a basic button setup, so we followed a tutorial through bARk, which allowed us to get basic interface functioning and change animation states on the screen. This process included editing a script and including a face tracker aspect, which we thought may be helpful for development of bARk.
Yeah, so as Chelsea mentioned with this tutorial, we were really helpful after we got this prototype working, since buttons are going to be a main aspect of the bARk interface. The buttons in bARk are going to be what allow a user to interact with their pet. So with this script, we gain the knowledge on how to allow a user to click on any of these, in this case, emoji buttons, and have the animation state on the screen change. So we also figured out that these buttons can automatically slide across the bottom, and a developer, in this case, us, we would be allowed to add as many as we wanted with different categories.
We then manipulated the file containing the emoji buttons to show the icons that we had brainstormed for bARk. We incorporated the dog we plan to use for a prototype into the screen just to get a more realistic feel of how the interface would work. We weren't like sure about how the button sizes would respond, but after research, we concluded that the button size will automatically readjust based on our user's screen and their phone size, so that when they're projecting the avatar through Instagram or Facebook, the buttons will look directly coded for their phone.
These are the original icons we came up with. The decision to have the icons be white with a semi-transparent black background was based on studying other AR applications such as Snapchat. The black background serves to create greater contrast for the icons so they're able to appear within any living space. The left is a recording of the alpha prototype to show how the application would flow, and just next to that are 4 different variations of the semi-transparent black background we used in user testing to see what better fits the needs of our users. To the right of that are all the icons together in one sheet to show all the sections and actions we came up with.
So when developing the icons for the AR page of our app, we knew from the start that what we thought as UI was a good fit would not resonate the same with our users. So what we did was develop a card sort to not only test the icons themselves, but the groups under which the icons were sorted under. We wanted to see are the correct interactions being grouped under the right categories? Do some of the options not exist that users wanted to see? And are our groups that we created incorrect and need fixing? What we did with the card sort is that we allowed a variety of different cards for users to sort through, developing their own categories. It allowed us to understand how the users were grouping specific cards together in ways that we had never thought of, but also creating more user-centered categories. What we found really interesting were how people grouped certain categories together. Some created 4 categories, others created 8 categories, while others, like it being shown here, are grouping everything into 3 categories. These results that you see are completely different from the way we as a team viewed our groupings. We never thought of grouping these categories into 3 and realized how much overlap between different cards that there were.
The AR icon understanding user test was run at the same time as the card sort user test, but with a different user group. The reason the 2 tests were run with separate groups is because the card sort tested icon grouping, while the icon understanding tested users' understanding of the icon meanings. If the users were already shown groupings on the icon understanding screen, they would have pre-existing ideas about the groupings for the card sort. While if the users were shown the icon meanings on the card sort, they would have pre-existing ideas for the icon understanding. The goal of this user test was to see if the icons were intuitive, visible, and clickable. The UX team put together a script that asked about each of the section meanings, then had users run through each icon in that section, explaining what they think it means. Then they asked to click each icon in the sections to ensure there's enough click space. The visibility section used 4 numbered screens. The user was told to compare the visibility of the icons between the 4 and choose the number with the best icon visibility.
On the left is the list of sections and actions that we tested users on. They're color coded to show what need to be addressed after user testing. Green meant users had no difficulty understanding. Yellow meant users had little difficulty, and red meant users had a lot of difficulty. So starting off with the whistle icon, it raised some confusion because while some users correctly thought they were commands, other thought it was simply calling the dog to the user. Next, the heart icon raised a lot of confusion because although users recognized it to be about health, they didn't understand like the scope of the section. For instance, some thought it would show the health and stats of the pet, and others talked about like first aid for the pet if it was possible for the pet to be injured. This was due to the plus sign in the middle of the heart. Another scope issue was the clothing icon. Users didn't understand if they were just able to dress their pet or completely remake them. And the sleep icon also had similar problems, but to a lesser extent. People didn't understand whether their pet would nap or sleep long hours and was confused to why that was a mechanic in the first place. So the result of everything was redefining our sections, which you can see on the right, and remaking the icons, prioritizing clarity on a darker background, which users preferred. We're thinking about adding color in the future after conducting more user testing.
Okay, so moving into the AR beta, we made some changes to our AR alpha following specific Spark AR guidelines, which we realized included sizing for our icons. They all had to be a certain size to fit within a circle with even spacing around each of them. We also narrowed down our categories to 3 instead of 4. And this was based on feedback from users in the AR icon grouping card sort test that Leanne mentioned earlier. So our new categories are care, commands, and play. For the future, we plan on moving our progress from spark AR into Unity over the course of winter break and into next term. This is because we need a platform where we can expand our opportunities for tapping and selecting button options. Spark AR was a great resource for practicing projecting the avatar and getting the feel for the interface, but it doesn't allow us much more complexity to add to our buttons within their picker UI feature, which is what we're currently using for the buttons. As you know, with Instagram and Facebook filters, you get an arrangement of buttons to choose from to select your original interaction or filter, but those buttons aren't really capable of expanding into subfilters or subcategories. So working in Unity will allow us to build out a much more complex button interface where users will have different options to choose subcategories or subfilters of our buttons to really interact with their pet and perform their desired interactions.
For our beta prototype, we combined the two main sections our user would interact with the app, the pet creation section and the AR interaction page. We made it so the pet creation is all on one page with multiple tabs rather than have multiple pages. While we haven't done usability tests on this, which we plan to next term to start out with, we feel confident with our design decisions due to our all of our UX notes and research from previous tests and card sorts. Major changes with this iteration. We increased the size of the preview screen at the top of each of the screens. We moved the navigation that we had at the top of the screen to the middle and allow scrolling. So it's, we can add more options if we need, and an overall UI cleanup. Specifically, breed selection, we decided to remove the search bar for now as we have a few options, and we didn't want to overwhelm the user when going to test this prototype. But in the future, we'll most likely add it when more breed options are available. As for the size changes, we changed from 3 set sizes to a slider for more customization. Then for an eye, we have icons, the shape of the dog with the actual pattern on it to let the user know what the fur pattern will be visually instead of just a simplified version. As we also added a way to customize colors of the dog, because just like humans, we also have like different eye colors and sometimes heterochromia. We are also allowing the user to select multiple eye colors per fur or eye to mix and match whatever color they wish to make. And then lastly, behavior, we figured out the ideal amount of traits to be about 5 based off user surveys and other applications. So we decided that the search bar wasn't needed in this case since there's only like 5 options to really go through. And to simulate the ability to interact with the preview window at the top of the screen, like rotation and zooming in and out, I enabled the scrolling on the image to be able to move around, since we're unable to implement a 3D model to be interacted with in Figma, as far as we know, to replicate this. In hopes that when we do usability test, our users will understand that the preview window will be interactable. Lastly, we included a confirmation page to ensure the user's happy with their creation before moving on to the interacting with the virtual pet. As for the interaction screen here, we changed the icons to be under 3 different categories based off our card sorting that was mentioned earlier. Other minor changes were icons made to be more solid for better visibility, like the tennis ball, whistle, and then we have category icons, the tennis ball, whistle, and heart look faded when the category is open to visually let the user know that those category icons aren't actual buttons, but just a representation of the category. Lastly, the action for petting the dogs not included was these, specifically the commands icon, since this is where we'll have the more interactable AR come in. In theory, if the user wanted to pet the dog, they would just need to tap on the AR projection of the dog to start the animation as if the dog was being petted. Another feature we considered, but due to lack of time and resources and just confusion with how we implemented, was dressing up the dog. This would require another set of screens and menuing, which we decided to hold off on the idea due to time constraints, and may consider if we have extra time.
Some of our goals for next quarter are to bring our AR progress into Unity because, as you mentioned before, Spark AR was limited and we cannot implement all of our features with it. We would also like the home screen to be developed as a mobile app and linked to Unity with some functionality. And we would like all of our UI screens to be finalized with color and micro interaction planning. In the 6-month time frame, the goal is to create a 3D model that can be placed and interacted with using AR. This project will be considered successful if a 3D model is working in the AR space. And if time permits, the team will begin developing a mobile application within to link to our Unity AR prototype. Thank you so much for listening. We'll now open the floor for comments, feedbacks, and questions.